baby.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Senator Steve Glazer, and for those who love our technology, we are live streaming this on Twitter and Facebook. So folks that aren't here can join in our important remarks. But I want to thank you all for coming. We are, of course, here with a great coalition of not just students and faculty, but some of my really great colleagues from the Senate and the Assembly, Republicans and Democrats, all united in calling for full funding for the California State University and the University of California. And what that would do, importantly, is it would freeze tuition at the existing level, and it would also allow both systems to enroll many more qualified Californians to the system. I am a proud graduate of San Diego State University, the Fighting Aztecs, and when I went to college, I paid $200 a semester. My parents and their generation invested in higher education. But since then, we have plundered that treasure. And more the burden is falling on students and their families, as you can see on this graphic demonstration here. The UC Regents and the CSU trustees are considering tuition hikes, and we cannot let this happen. The legislature needs to step up. The cost would be just a fraction of our current budget surplus. But we must make this investment, not just in our students, but in the future of our great state. I'm pleased that I'm joined by many colleagues in the legislature. I'd like to introduce them and give them an opportunity to speak to you. First, the chairman of the Senate Education Committee, my good colleague Ben Allen.
Well, thank you, Senator Glazer. And I want to say that Senator Glazer has a very good sense of history because he has shared with us these wonderful buttons that come from the 70s, vintage buttons from the 70s, that speak to a time when there was a promise made to the young people of California that we would have a tuition-free higher educational system. And it's part of why we, for a long time, went through the charade of claiming that whenever there were effectively tuition increases, they weren't tuition increases, they were fee increases. And of course, eventually, we finally said to ourselves, this is ridiculous. We are charging tuition. We're charging too much tuition. But the original goal under the master plan was that we would have a tuition-free university system. And this is the kind of thing that's offered to young people all throughout the developed world. You go to Europe, you spend time in Japan, you go to other countries that have much stronger systems. And they ultimately give a promise to their young people that education is important, and that's why the state is going to step up and fund that education and not force young people to leverage their futures year after year after year in the way that we force young people to do so here in California and around the United States. It's a backward way of approaching things. It's not the right way for us to invest in our future. And what we're doing here today is saying that with the enormous surplus that we've seen in the state budget, we've got to buy out these tuition increases. We've got to fully fund the budget requests of the California State University system and the University of California. They are holding true to their promise to young people, but that promise is becoming increasingly out of reach. It's becoming increasingly expensive, and we're asking for a tuition buyout and a full fund of the budget asks of the two university systems. Déjeme decir en español que ya eso es la hora de comprar la matrícula y parar el crecimiento de matrícula para todos los estudiantes del estado de California. Tenemos que invertir en el futuro y en los futuros de nuestros estudiantes. Ya podemos poner un poquito de nuestro presupuesto en una compra de crecimiento de la matrícula para todos nuestros estudiantes. So I'm really proud to be here with my colleagues. We're going to fight hard for our students, and this is just the beginning. We got to get students up here. We got to be talking this talk, and eventually moving toward the promise that was originally given to the young people of California, a tuition-free university. I don't know if we're ever going to get there, but that's where we need to be heading. That's what's right for our future. That's what's right for our country, and I'd like to see us move in that direction. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Allen. The chair of the Assembly Higher Education Committee has joined us as well. Please welcome Assemblyman Jose Medina.
Thank you very much, Senator. As was stated, I am Assembly Member Jose Medina. I chair the Assembly Higher Ed Committee. And we have heard from students. We have heard from students here in Sacramento. We have heard from students when we were in Fresno and heard the master plan. Students came from Riverside. Students came from Santa Cruz and drove all the way to Fresno and drove all the way to Sacramento to share their stories. So I am here to say that we have heard the students and that I am proud to be here with my colleagues, both of the Assembly and the Senate, and to be here with you, students of California, to demand, to say that it is past time, to ignore higher education, that it is past time that we allow what is going on here in California, what the students shared with us, that they have to work 2, 3 jobs, make decisions whether they were going to eat or pay the rent or have money for books. We cannot allow that in the state of California. Last week, as the Assembly and throughout California, we celebrated 50-year walkouts of the students of East LA. 50 years ago in 1968, the students of East LA walked out to say that education had to meet their needs, that Latino students had a place in higher education. Well, now 50 years later, Latino students are a big part of higher education in both the community college, the CSU, and UC. So at a time where Latinos make up the biggest part of the enrollment of higher education is not the time to disinvest in higher education. So I am proud to be here with my colleagues to say that we must and will fully fund both the UC system and the CSU system. Thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you. I mentioned at the opening that this fight that we're engaged in is a bipartisan fight. And I'm pleased that a member of the Senate Select Committee on Student Success, Senator Scott Wilk, is here and to share his thoughts with you.
I'm also vice chair of education on the Senate side. He's chair of the Select Committee, that's why he knows that. I'm not going to reiterate, what we've already heard, but when I was getting this put on me, I was having a flashback because I wore this as a student back in the 70s, and it has not been lost on me that we had the same governor then as we do today, which I think is kind of interesting. And just to share with you, I thought I was going to be, first one to graduate from my family college. I took the path that many students like me took, which was junior college back then because it was free, and then CSU because it was incredibly affordable, although you got to still tack on all the living expenses and stuff. When I thought I was set to graduate, I met with the counselor, found out I wasn't, so I had to go another semester, and I started gagging, thinking about, I can't eat top ramen again. And so that's even before we had the term food insecurity. So I feel your pain. And you know what? If we don't properly invest, California is going to feel the pain because we are severely underfunded. We are blessed with great natural resources. Geopolitically, we're the gateway to Asia. Historically, we've had the best trained workforce in the world, and we're letting that slip away because of underinvestment by your leaders here in Sacramento. Everybody up on the stage is committed to fully funding because it's not only your future, it's all of our future. So really, thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Senator Wilk. Thank you, Senator Wilk. I think that my committees are a lot more fun than Ben's committee, but anyway, we have some great colleagues in the Senate here. Senator Ed Hernandez, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Let me first thank Senator Steve Glazer for putting this coalition together. I briefly want to just share with you my story as with Senator Wilk. You know, I'm a product of the public schools, went to community college, first in my family to graduate from Cal State Fullerton. Any Titans here? Oh, okay, no Titans here. All right, we got a Titan back here. But simply put, this is when college was kind of more affordable, but I still had to work. But I'll tell you the difference and what the change for me was. It allowed me the ability to be the first in my family to go to college, become a doctor, and become a state senator. It was the road to the middle class. So guess what? We have a shrinking middle class in this country right now and in this state. And if we are going to change the delta of California and make California advance, we have to do it through higher education by investing in our community college as well and our CSUs and our UC systems, because we have to live up to what the master plan of the state of California says, that if you're a California resident, education is free. And if we can graduate more individuals, we're going to be more competitive on the world stage, but more importantly in the United States. So I am totally committed to make sure that there's other individuals that are coming from communities like myself that can graduate from college, live the American dream, but more importantly, invest back into the state of California. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to introduce to you now the Vice Chair of the Assembly Higher Education Committee, Assemblywoman Katherine Baker.
Thank you. And thank you, Senator Glazer, for once again bringing people together across party lines and in both chambers to stand in support of what people from all across the state of California want to see us working together on. And I'm speaking not only as a Cal grad, go Bears, the wife of a Cal grad, go Bears, but also look in the eye of Cal State East Bay students who are all throughout this building. We should give them a hand. They are working very hard to make sure that they are taking the opportunity path ahead of them. Our California State University system and University of California system is a crown jewel of our state, as is our youth all across the state. And we have many shared values in these systems. First is to make sure that they open pathways to opportunity for everyone in California. And second is to make sure they have California students getting treated first, that they have priority chairs for our California students, and that they help make sure that you finish in 4 years if you want to, that the classes you need are there and available. And our legislature has been a very vocal, sometimes critic, and voice in saying this is what UC and CSU need to do. We need to do our job and be partners to help make that happen. That success story is only possible if we fully fund CSU and UC, because we expect them to have their budgets in order, their financial house in order. We need to have our financial support in order, and that's why we're here today, calling on all of us to work together for fully funding our higher education system. I'm proud to do that in both chambers, both parties. Let's get the job done.
Well said. I'd like to welcome to the podium my good colleague from the Senate, Jerry Hill.
Thank you, Senator Glazer, and thank you for your leadership in this. This is so important and vitally critical. In fact, your $225, my fee at the time was $125 at Berkeley. So it has changed considerably, but I'm much older than you are, I know. That's exactly right. But this is a little selfish, and it may sound selfish, but I represent Silicon Valley. And the success of Silicon Valley is on an educated workforce, a very highly educated workforce. And that success of Silicon Valley is the success of California and the success of our nation. And we can only do that if we provide the opportunity and the resources so that our young residents of California can exceed and can succeed in higher education. This provides that opportunity. This provides the ability when we can do it, and we can do it this year, and we need to do it this year. if we want that economic engine to maintain its success and the strength that it has for all of us and the resources that it provides. So thank you, Senator Glazer. Let's bring it home on this one. Thank you.
Jerry looks younger than me, I know that. I'd like to welcome to the microphone our good Senator Bill Dodd.
I too would like to thank the good Senator Glazer for bringing us all together on this incredibly important issue. I represent Sonoma State University, Cal State Maritime, and UC Davis Aggies. So that's a big deal for me, but it's also a big deal across the entire state of California because our CSU system and our UC systems represent about $100 billion a year in economic activity for the state of California. And the idea that we're not fully investing in these institutions is somewhat puzzling to me, and I really feel honored to be here on the stage with these great legislators that are we're going to all be working together to get this done. You know, I'm a product of the CSU system myself at Chico State University. I had two of my children go to CSU, and one is a Bear and one is a Gaucho in the UC system. So this is something that goes through generations in the state of California. I stand firm working together with my colleagues to make this all happen. Thank you very much.
Representing CSU Channel Islands, the great senator from the Ventura County area, Senator Henry Stern.
There's a few Dolphins in the audience. I also got CSUN's back, and I got UCLA's back. I got UC Berkeley's back. Look, we got all your back. We're united here, and I think that's what you're seeing across party lines, between houses, between systems. Today's a very exciting show of unity, and you shouldn't have to suffer through poverty in order to make your way into the middle class in this state. You shouldn't have to decide between paying rent, buying yourself lunch, and paying for classes. 10% right now, over 50,000 students in the UC and CSU system, just in the CSU system alone, right? Just in the CSU system alone are experiencing homelessness. And 200,000 students right now don't have access on a weekly basis to meals. So there's hunger and homelessness, these sort of basics in our lives should not be what's standing between you all and your mobility to a better life. So we're going to try to solve some of those challenges this year, and you got to keep showing up and be noisy, not just today at this press conference, but keep it up. Students have the power right now. This is young people's moment in this country to step up and lead. So thank you for showing us the way, and we'll follow. We'll follow.
And speaking of that future generation of leaders, we have one to join us today. She was formerly a student trustee and now president of the California State Student Association, Maggie White.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for hosting this event, Senator Glazer, and for all of your support of higher education. I'm so pleased to be standing up here with such ardent supporters of the CSU and UC systems. It is so empowering to hear your voices raised up as one in support of student success. So I want to thank you specifically for having this holistic focus on student success, speaking about the food and housing insecurity struggles that all of our students are experiencing across our two higher education systems. But I would go so far as to say that this conversation we're having today isn't really about schools. It's about equity. It means that a poor kid from the rural San Joaquin Valley can go through these systems and obtain a master's degree and break that cycle of poverty in their community. It means that everyone can have access to the things that they need to climb the ladder out of poverty, which even in such a prosperous state as California, is a secret problem that so many people from Humboldt to San Diego face. So I am so pleased and so privileged to be part of this conversation. Every time that we meet with elected representatives, we hear, of course, CSU is a priority, higher education is a priority, but what about all of those social service benefits that we need to be funding? What about all of the social safety net resources that we need to put money into? But the thing is, there is no better investment than higher education because it will relieve the burden on those social safety net programs while uplifting the state as a whole. So thank you so much for being ardent in your support of the CSU and the UC. I am so glad that you are allies in this fight, Senator Glazer and all of the elected officials on the stage. Students stand with you and are so pleased to be part of this process. So thank you very much. We look forward to fighting for a fully funded CSU and going back to basics and ensuring that all students across the state have access to food, housing, and the mental health resources that they need to be successful. Thank you.
We have a special representative from the University of California Student Association, the chair of the University Affairs for that group, Rigel Robinson.
Thank you, Senator Glazer. Students across the state and across all of our systems of public higher education have made their voices heard. Decades of state disinvestment in public higher ed has created a perfect storm of food, housing, financial, and basic needs insecurity for the students of California. My name is Rigel Robinson, and as the University Affairs Chair for the UC Student Association, I hear stories every day of the challenges that our students are going through because their campuses don't have the resources they need to succeed. The master plan elevated principles of accessibility, affordability, and quality for the state. In our commitment to accessibility, the state has demanded higher and higher enrollment growth from the UC almost annually for years. But growth costs, and unfunded enrollment growth mandates have been putting a strain on campus resources. If we want to continue the mission of the UC to serving more and more Californians, we must supply our schools with the tools that they need to be successful. Campuses are communities. And if we aren't ensuring that every student has a roof over their head and 3 meals a day, how can we expect them to prioritize their studies? At UC Berkeley, we're actually about to open our first new residence hall in years, around 700 new beds for students. But in the time that it took for this new residence hall to be planned and developed, our annual enrollment has increased by far more than 700. Meanwhile, our class sizes have skyrocketed, leaving students to take notes in the aisles between seats. Our financial aid and advising staff are overburdened, and our chancellor is being forced to make budget cuts to meaningful campus departments and academic programs. Our campuses cannot keep up with the expansion that is being demanded of them. All I ask of our state legislators, who, like myself and so many of us on this stage, are products of public education, is that you act, guided by the principle that the students of today and the students of the future are deserving of the same quality of education that you received when you attended California's public schools. The UC students are here, asking for funding to buy out our student services fee and tuition increases. We're asking for funding for the enrollment growth that has already been demanded of us, and we're asking for funding for the enrollment growth that is currently being demanded of us. We're asking for funding for deferred maintenance costs so that we can take care of our crumbling campuses. This building is full of politicians who want to use the UC budget to score political points against the UC Office of the President. But that doesn't hurt the administrators in Oakland. It hurts students who are struggling to get by. So thank you, Senator Glazer, I know, and to all of our colleagues up here in the legislature who have joined us to stand up for public higher education. But this would be much easier if more of our state legislators would step up to say enough. Enough disinvestment, enough cuts, enough fees. It's time to fund the UC. Thank you.
Well, we have some wonderful faculty leaders that are sharing with us their sage wisdom advice, who have been around a long time and seen the cycles of good and bad that we've been in. And I'd like to welcome them to share their thoughts with you. Representing the Academic Senate of the State Universities, Thomas Kraybacher.
First, again, let me join many others who have thanked you, Senator Glazer, first for organizing today's event, but also for your ongoing commitment to higher education. It's extremely important to all of us. As a representative of the Academic Senate, a body that represents 27,000 faculty in the California State University system, we've long supported the goals of the Master Plan of Higher Education, which basically could be summarized as a three-legged stool. One leg's quality, the other's access, the other's affordability. The faculty will take care of the quality issue. The education you get will be the best that you can get anywhere in the world. but it's up to the legislature to address the other two, affordability, and affordability is tied to access. And that comes about only if the budget requests, and not just of the CSU, but of the UC and the community colleges, all three segments of higher education are fully funded. The legislature has long voiced its support for higher education, and at times they've acted very dramatically to do so. This is another time to do so. The state budget is in pretty good shape. The fiscal opportunities are here. It's important that while we can do so, we fully fund higher education in California. So to all our legislators, all our friends, please support fully funded higher education. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. And representing the University of California Academic Senate, please welcome Shane White.
Thank you. The faculty and students absolutely agree it is time for state reinvestment in higher education. UC is educating 90,000 more students now than it did in 2000, but with less state funding per student than then. We faculty stand for affordability and for access. 2 years ago, for the first time in our history, student tuition eclipsed state support for instruction, a turning point. Hopefully we can turn that back. Our students now are the most diverse. They include the highest proportion of underrepresented minority students, the highest proportion of fiscally disadvantaged students in our history. This generation must not be shortchanged and receive a lesser education than their predecessors did. For the future, their future, and for the future of the state, we need reinvestment in higher education now. I'd like to thank everybody on this podium for what they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. And finally, I'd like to introduce the head of an organization that has worked tirelessly to support the CSU and certainly full funding over a long, long history, Jennifer Egan from the California Faculty Association.
Hi, good afternoon. So I'm Jennifer Egan. I'm the president of the California Faculty Association, and I'm a professor at Cal State East Bay. Yeah, East Bay. Right. So CFA and certainly everyone up here supports a deeper investment in our students by our state, because our students are obviously our future. 94% of the student body of the CSU is from California, and nearly 3/4 of those students identify as students of color. And yet, as we've seen the funding of the CSU become lighter when the student body has become darker. So we assume that this is not on purpose, but nonetheless, that is our current state of affairs that we need to fix. So CFA calls on the governor and the legislature to make a much greater investment in the CSU this year. CFA is asking for $422.6 million. This is $330.6 million more than the governor included in the January version of his budget. CFA's proposal would provide students with the classes they need, avoid another tuition increase, and admit an additional 18,000 qualified students that would otherwise be turned away. We faculty want to serve these students, but we have to have added resources to do so. So the state has a rainy day fund, and I can tell you, and other folks in the CSU can tell you, that it is raining. It is pouring. Now is the time. Now is the time to make that investment, in part because our students are being flooded away. They're being washed in a sea of debt, and even worse, we have students who aren't even getting their foot in the door in the CSU. They're being turned away. So sadly, even CFA's ask of $422.6 million does not address the full needs of our students in California. We need bold leadership like the folks on this stage to fight for a dedicated source of funding for higher education like the K-14 system has. That way we can get back to free higher education, free of tuition and fees, and provide additional support for the students who need it to live and learn at the same time. Education is quite obviously the driving force in our economy, and education is one of the strongest solutions to poverty. So we ask and implore the governor and the legislature to fund the dreams of our students and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. So in closing, I want to show you another graph here. Senator Allen, would you help me? Let's pull this one out here. This is a graph that shows the support from California for our higher education system over the last 40 years. And you can see it's a declining graphic, both for the University of California and for the California State University. We can't let this continue. We have to reverse this chart. And you saw the increase that comes in tuition as the declining state support becomes more and more apparent. So this is the start of our fight. I know we have a lot of students here. Thank you for being up here in the Capitol to make the case. I want to thank our wonderful faculty for being here, and they've been in this fight for a long time and have seen it over a course of many, many years. And we appreciate their wisdom and guidance as we join shoulder to shoulder with them. And most importantly, I want to thank our senators and assembly members who have come to join us today in declaring their support for full funding. We don't have a majority yet of the legislature. We have some work to do, but we are going to work hard to do it. There's too much at stake, as all of these individuals have indicated in our conference this afternoon. So with that, thank you all for coming. We'll be happy to answer questions for the press that are here as we adjourn this formal proceeding. So thank you all. Thank you.
Good work again.
Katherine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Yeah.